Hey gang, it's your boy, and welcome to my limited series about the gaming systems and video games that shaped my gaming experience. The systems and software, the consoles and cartridges, the devices and discs, the hardware and hue cards that created the framework of my favorite hobby. Would you like to hear the tales of bargaining and parental manipulation that shaped my platform options along the way? Well then buckle in and let's get to it. My parents weren't wealthy people, but my dad ran a successful business, and most of my siblings had moved away before I developed an interest in gaming. Our family rarely had the newest systems, but there were a few consoles that graced our living room in those early years. Some were quite forgettable, like the Radio Shack TV scoreboard, which was literally just 3 versions of Pong, and the Emerson Arcadia 2001, which was a Canadian and television knockoff. But the system that really stood out during this era was the legendary Atari 2600. Let's begin with the Radio Shack system. Here's a wide lapel commercial from 1976 for the TV scoreboard.
Julie ready to go?
Are you kidding? Hey, you want to play hockey? We got a new TV scoreboard game from Radio Shack.
Sure.
Radio Shack's fast-action TV games. Play hockey, tennis, squash, and more. Easy hookup to any TV.
I'm ready.
A great gift idea. An exciting entertainment bargain for year-round fun.
The system connected to the television with a handy little bypass switch that hooked up to the VHF antenna feed. It only sent a video signal in black and white with the sound effects, if you could call them that, being handled by an onboard speaker, which annoyingly could neither be silenced or turned down. The system had wired controllers that never really sat properly in their built-in cradles once the cords got sufficiently kinked and twisted. Once this little brown box outlived its entertainment value, it eventually ended up in the trash, save for the handy bypass switch that I would later use to play back videos from my Fisher-Price PXL 2000 portable video camera, which was my first love in video production. But that's a story for another time. I was very young then, so the credit for convincing my parents to purchase the Radio Shack console belonged to my older siblings. But it was my next older brother who used his hard-earned money to buy the Atari 2600 Junior, the first decent console we had. I remember that day well. My brother called me into the living room and challenged me to beat his high score on Activision's Sequest. I recall the sense of awe and wonder I felt controlling that little submarine sprite in smooth yet agile movements while I shot torpedoes at sharks and enemy subs, trying to rescue all the scuba divers. I remember being surprised at the danger of surfacing too quickly, or too late, risking detonation. Now, I was already familiar with the previous, more clunky incarnation of the 2600 with its faux wood grain finish and rubber tip selector switches that I got to play occasionally while visiting a friend. But that older version had mostly paddle-controlled games, which I didn't really care for, as I found the paddles to be overly sensitive and not at all comfortable. There was a more aesthetic appeal to that short rainbow version of the 2600 Junior, which compelled me to play daily and ignited my passion for gaming. The textured black plastic and brushed aluminum design of the console, the responsive joystick with its springy fire button, not to mention the flight stick style controllers that followed as my brother and parents sunk more money into the system. Lastly, the 2600 was the first console I ever bought into, saving up my allowance money for weeks to buy the game Boxing. Dolphin was another Activision favorite, playing a carefree dolphin being hunted by a deadly squid, navigating coral reefs using sonar to find the gaps while catching currents, leaping out of the water to catch a magical seagull, which would allow you to turn the tables on your aquatic foe.
That's it. Come closer. Ironic, isn't it? The hunter has become the hunted.
Atari's Yar's Revenge was high on my list of favorites, and the first game I ever knew of to come with its own packed-in comic book. Playing a humanoid fly in a spacesuit, chomping down on enemy shields, hiding out from enemies in the neutral zone, and dodging missiles while positioning to send one back was just exhilarating. Activision's Pitfall was a massive adventure game that seemed to go on forever and really challenged your problem-solving skills and memory while constantly testing your platforming ability, jumping over logs, swinging from vines and dodging scorpions, bats, crocodiles, all the while grabbing loot wherever it's found. There were other games I had as a kid, like Asteroids, Missile Command, Defender, River Raid, Pole Position, Plaque Attack, Frogger, and even landfill material like E.T. But my favorite game for this system had to be Atari's Desert Falcon. A winged adventure where you fly through the landscape of ancient Egypt, collecting items and loot, avoiding enemies both in the air and while hobbling on the ground. But the best part was the Sphinx boss battles at the end of each level. That's just epic. But even a legendary system like the 2600 couldn't hold my interest for more than a couple years, especially once the Nintendo Entertainment System was released. But sadly, my parents weren't willing to pay almost $200 for a new console. Yet. Enter the Emerson Arcadia 2001, which my parents bought used in an initial attempt at stopping my constant nagging for an NES. I remember being really excited and waiting impatiently for my dad to bring it home because I had never heard of an Arcadia 2001, but it sounded cool, and the seller was including 10 games, and I needed some new games, yo. Unfortunately, the excitement was gone once I finished trying out all the games. The video quality was neither no better or worse than the Atari 2600. Same went for the sound. Not to mention most of the games were poorly programmed knockoffs of the Atari games I already had. The Arcadia 2001 was visually and functionally a step backward. The controllers were wired on this one just like the Radio Shack system, but the cords were coiled, which created an annoying tug whenever you moved your hands. The controllers also had a rounded D-pad with a small joystick that could be unthreaded from the middle. And speaking of pads, there was a numeric keypad above the joystick where you could use the plastic overlays that came with the games to display more controls. On top of all of that, there were fire buttons on each side of them. Too bad there wasn't much to do with all those options. It lasted a week before I resumed my nagging. This would not stand. I would have my next generation console no matter what chores I had to agree to do, no matter how many weeks or months of allowance money I would need to forego, no matter how much butt I had to kiss. And of course, it worked. I gave them all the info my 10-year-old brain could absorb from my friends who had modern consoles. And equipped with this elementary school wisdom, my parents got rid of the Arcadia 2001 and found another used console. But we'll have to leave it there until next time, kids. Be sure to follow me on the social media links in the description below to be notified of the next episode of my retro gaming history. If you'd like to see me live stream some of these 2600 games I mentioned in the video, come follow me on Minds.com, where you can voice chat with me in a gathering while I play. Use my referral link to join if you're not already a member. But until then, I've been your boy, Richard Rizzo, and you've all been great, I guess. I'll see you next time. Peace out.